I don't know. I do feel afraid going in the bathrooms if I'm going to be stopped or someone's going to beat me up because they think I'm a threat to someone. But at the same time, I'm just like, if that happens, that happens. It's hard to not live in fear of these things, but it hasn't happened to me personally. But I just roll with like knowing that with legislation changes now, if I got arrested for anything, I'll be put in a men's prison and probably raped and beaten up, might die. But I don't know, I'll try not to commit crimes. But like that shouldn't be, it's like a cruel and unjust.
Shouldn't be something you have to think about.
Yeah.
Hey, how you going? My name is Lachlan Watt, and music is my life. Now, after 7 weeks of podcasts recorded at Damnation Festival in Manchester in the UK, we are finally at the end of the line for my coverage of this event. But this week's final Damnation conversation is with an artist who was not even actually a part of the 2025 lineup. UK three-piece Pupil Slicer have a total disregard for genre conventions. I remember gushing about their second album, 2023's Blossom, on the radio a few years back, and describing it over and over again as simply sounding like Pupil Slicer, as they have an extremely fresh mix of some familiar sounds going on. The trio's new record, Fleshwork, has basically embraced the leaps the band made with their songwriting from the first album to the second, but kind of pulled the burgeoning melodic and progressive elements back a little bit more towards the consistently harsh and grinding sounds of their earlier material. Anyway, here's a little piece of a track called Nomad. Seeing that the band had just dropped this new album as I arrived in the UK, I reached out to frontperson Kate Davies about the possibility of recording a podcast in the days after the festival before I went home. But it turns out they were going to be at Damnation anyway, so we linked up at the end of day 2 to talk all things Fleshwork, finding their sound, Kate's unusual journey of discovery in heavy music, being a huge fan of Deaf Heaven, as well as Kate's perspective on and lived experience as a trans person in the UK, and how that has shaped what Pupil Slicer stands for. My name is Lachlan Watt, music is my life. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. If you're here for the first time now because of Pupil Slicer, I guarantee that there will be several episodes in the back catalogue that will get you going. So go back through it and check it out. And now I give you my conversation with Kate Davies of Pupil Slicer. Cheers.
Yeah, the reception's really good. Fantastic. Yes, across the board, people seem to be liking it. People seem to think it's the best. Out of the 2 albums, people seem to think it's a bit of both and better than both, which is sort of what we were going for with it. We wanted to have a bit of the more chaotic and in-your-face approach to the first album with the songwriting chops from like the second one.
Yeah, there are very, very different records, the first and the second one. I was quite taken aback by Blossom because it started off as basically like a power balance grind kind of thing, and then all of a sudden, second record, like just this like, I don't even know how to describe it, like a mystical kind of magical mix of everything.
Yeah.
What would you even have described Blossom as stylistically?
I don't know.
That's part of the...
I think at the time I called it what did I call it? A rock opera, maybe even. And it's a bit over the top. It's a big concept album, mathcore rock opera / post black metal. I guess seems to be a recurring thing in our music.
Yeah, so it was like an alien science fiction kind of concept thing, right?
Yeah.
What about Fleshwork? Is it following in similar themes or?
No, it's more of we sort of, it's not a concept album, but it's still got a conceptual through line with it. It's just less written as a overall story, and more tonally sort of matching, where it's an atmosphere created of I think the idea was we were going for was sort of the worst parts of humanity and humanity's cruelty to itself, and our place as cogs in the big industrial machine of the world, and the way the machine grinds us down. And then, but the machinery is all made of people. It's all meat, the work of flesh or whatever. And the conceptual thing was sort of the through line, sort of cruelty. Just people in positions of power miswielding that power and not really giving a shit about anyone sort of beneath them. And I think those were sort of the main things. And the way that we're manipulated into hating each other and those kind of things to divide us, instead of looking at the real problems in society, and that a lot of it is manufactured to create dissonance between people. I guess.
I imagine a lot of that is coloured by your experience as a trans person in the current climate of things.
Yeah, that being a trans person, being a disabled person, knowing other people who are trans, disabled, people of colour, sort of any kind of thing you can be discriminated on, I feel, is sort of something that there seems to be more and more of today, as there seems to be a larger shift towards the right, and a resurgence of sort of fascism around the world at the moment, which isn't great. But at the end of the day, you can't let that sort of get you down, and that's why I think people seem to be picking up on that with the album, is that the album is a light shined on those things. And I think people who are struggling in similar situations where they feel like there's nothing for them anymore, it's sort of showing that it's not just them alone, and there is more out there, and there are other people struggling with the same things who are the victims of these systems built to break you down, and that through music, through community, there are ways to keep going and keep sane during everything going on in the world.
Yeah, so it gets better.
Yeah.
And have you found like the music community has it been an overwhelmingly like supportive sort of place for you? And
yeah, the fan base we've cultivated is definitely a very friendly one. A lot of queer people and neurodivergent people in our fans. We tend to say, in the nicest possible way, we get the freaks at our shows, but the social outcasts and stuff. But it's quite a welcoming place, and they're the nicest people, and I think that's really cool to. I think because of the content of the music, maybe it filters out some of the more unpleasant aspects of metal shows. Like, I'm not gonna throw shade at any particular genres and stuff, but I think you get a lot less skinheads at our shows than you would like an old school death metal show. Nothing wrong with death metal and stuff. It's just that there is a subsect of fans who tend to be like within all genres of music. You know, there are the dodgy people out there.
People that are less welcoming.
Yeah, who are less welcoming, who don't want to share their scene with others. And I think metal should be something that's welcoming. And I think maybe that's more of a hardcore ethos than a metal one. But it's definitely what we try to bring, is sort of that friendly. We're all us in the band are just fans of the music. I see that a lot in hardcore, where the people watching the other bands are just other bands playing that night, and that's sort of where we've started. And it's still like that. Like, I'm here at Damnation Festival, and I'm just watching my mates' bands. I'm watching Conjurer playing songs that I was on the record version of. And then, like, Brady from Conjurer's driving our tour in 2 weeks. And our friend Coil Guns, we took them on tour in April last year, and it was really nice to catch up with them. So it's really nice just seeing everyone about. And Sam from Anathrak, we've been friends with him for a while. That was when we shared like a 2-hour shuttle from a festival in I think Brutal Assault. We shared a shuttle with him back to the airport, and since then we've been good chums. And it's fun that just playing shows, you make friends with the other people. But even from the start, like our first show we ever played was with Death Goals, and they're still doing great things. They're opening that Conjurer tour that's going on at the moment. Their new EP was fantastic, and I'm really happy for all the success they've got. It's really cool the way, like, we played with Harriet in like 2016, 2017, and then we've also played with like Debbie from Harriet's old band prior to that, Dead Hands, which was a really cool sort of mathcore project, and we've been friends with Debbie and the Harriet lads for like a decade at this point. Yeah, both of our debuts have been in like the last 4 years. And then they're going on to do amazing things. They're touring with Trivium in the US at the moment, in arenas and stuff, which is amazing. So it's a really cool thing seeing the rise of other people. But at the end of the day, we're all the same people we were then, just we're playing bigger shows. And it's a really fun community thing. And like, we meet people in bands. So Burner, who are really cool.
Yeah, they're sick.
Yeah, sort of UK HM2 mathcore band, really cool stuff. Their first demo thing, they recorded where we recorded Blossom with Lewis Johns, and Lewis showed it to us before it came out. And we were like, oh, this is amazing, it's great. And then I was like, the drumming on this is amazing. And Lewis said the name of the drummer, and I was like, oh, I almost started a mathcore band with him like 4 years prior, and that didn't come through. And I was like, oh, good luck with what you do next. And then that ended up being Burner, and we're good friends with them now because I've helped when they were putting out their stuff. I was trying to boost it where we were getting features being like, oh, what are the cool bands? And I was like, oh, Burner. And now Burner are doing really well and like coming up and stuff, and it's like really welcoming, like, because the same thing happened to us when we were starting out. I went and chatted with like Sammy from Employed to Serve after their shows and was like, oh, I love your band, when like just their first album was out like a decade ago, and was being an annoying fan, but he was so welcoming. And I was like, oh, I've been working on riffs and I'd love to play with you and stuff. And 8 years later we did tour with Employed to Serve like 2 years ago, and that was fantastic. And like Frontier, I just went up and started chatting to Ped after their show at the Black Heart right after Orange Mathematics came out in like 2015, and then eventually he ended up producing our first album, and he's sort of been like a mentor to us in like how to plan out releases, how to plan out your touring and things like that. So it's a really supportive scene. To answer your question, it's been fantastic, and we're surrounded by the best people.
So what was your gateway into this world of like the British like post-metal, post-hardcore, mathcore, whatever you're calling all these bands? I really, side note, love the UK kind of I guess scene with all these bands that don't really have an exact kind of thing, but there's, you know, parts of metal, parts of hardcore, and you all sort of seem to have this like little circle that you're all a part of. Like, how did you discover that in the first place?
I think it was just like going to shows in the UK. Like, it was the first time I saw Employed to Serve was Full of Hell played a free entry show at the Unicorn in London, and Employed to Serve was one of the openers, and that was just after their first album came out, and I was like, this is sick, this is really cool. And so I became a fan then. I attended their other shows. Who else from back then? Like Death Goals, obviously the first show we ever played was with Death Goals, and that's where we discovered them. We were like, oh, your stuff's sick. Like, we played a Converge cover at that show, and they were going off for it and like really excited. And afterwards, we're like, oh, that was amazing. And then we did a split with them right after, and it wasn't really a discovery of it, because it was, if we wanted to play music, if you want to play music, you're going to be part of that scene, because you're going to end up playing with them. Like Ithaca's a band from then that's sadly broken up now, but they were another band that was touring with, and if bands came through London, the support bands, the local bands, are the bands that are now this scene of bands that are growing, like Harriet, like Burner, like Employed to Serve, that are doing amazing things around the world. But it is interesting how in the UK there seems to be like this little movement going on, and I don't really know what to call it, because definitely within our sound, Harriet's, Burner, Loathe, Static Dress, Ithaca, Employed to Serve. There's all these bands, and there seems to be a weird, for some reason, the influences seem to be all pulled, like everyone's doing them in different amounts, but it seems to be mathcore like Dillinger, Converge, electronic elements like Nine Inch Nails, and black gaze like Death Heaven. And for some reason, all of those bands are writing songs that have those elements in. And I'm like, how has this happened? And is there going to be a name for what we're playing now? Because I don't know. It's weird when Harriet put out their first album and stuff. There was a song with like a little black gaze section in it, and I was like, oh, that's cool. They're doing that, and there's little mathy bits. And then Burner puts out a song, and there's a black gaze track, and there's like mathcore stuff, and it sounds HM2y and Converge-y, and I don't know why there seems to be this overlap. Maybe it's us all influencing each other. Because I know, like, I suppose Loathe is one of the biggest in the UK doing that stuff, but they also are hitting those same notes of like electronic elements. They've got their mathcore riffs. They've got their black gaze tracks. It's really interesting that there's this little scene, and it seems like everyone, because it's not like we talk with these bands as well. Like, it's just we all are playing shows and we're all aware of each other. But
it's like the new wave of not exactly heavy, not exactly metal, British heavy metal, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, new wave of. It's not really metalcore, post-metalcore. I don't know. Who knows?
It's sick, whatever it is.
New wave of British metalcore. I don't know.
But taking it back further than that, what was your gateway bands into like heavy music to begin with?
Into heavy music to begin with, I mean, I didn't listen to a huge amount until I was fairly old. I mean, the first things I heard that I guess could be called heavy would have been like Avenged Sevenfold in Call of Duty, Black Ops zombie soundtrack. And then I was like, oh, this is cool. And I listened to a bit of Avenged Sevenfold, but I don't think it went. And whatever was in like the Burnout soundtracks, I suppose, like CKY and Finch and Yellow Card. No, I didn't really get into metal until I was like 18 and started university, and then I got really into like electronic stuff. I got into like Godspeed You, Black Emperor and Swans, and then I saw the cover of Death Heaven's Sunbather when it came out, and I was like, oh, that looks like a chill electronic album, like a Tycho album or something. I'll chuck that on, and it wasn't, and it had harsh vocals, but I was like, oh, whatever, I've chucked it on now. I'll just sit through it because everyone's saying it's amazing and the best album of the year. And then by the end of it, I was like, I didn't get it, but I really liked Vertigo because the intro sounded like Godspeed You, Black Emperor, and I really liked that. And I had listened to that song enough that eventually the sort of harsh vocals clicked for me because they were so low in the mix. I was like, oh, yeah, I can deal with that. And then eventually I was like, well, I like the blast beats and the riffs, and it's really cool. And then from there, a friend had recommended me like Dillinger Escape Plan and Between the Buried and Me. And I was like, oh, I like Between the Buried and Me, but I don't like all the screaming they're doing. And then I came back to it after Death Heaven and was like, oh, I get it now. And the same with Dillinger. I was like, oh, I get it now. And then someone was like, well, if you like those, listen to Jane Doe by Converge. And I was like, sure. And I put it on and I was like, this is the best thing I've ever heard. And from there, I sort of expanded out. But because of that, it came in a really weird direction. So I didn't quite go... Like, I didn't grow up listening to Slipknot and listening to Metallica and stuff, so I've gone back and listened to those bands and Iron Maiden and Black Sabbath and stuff. But I did come in a weird route, and it's funny that the first 4 metal bands I listened to would have been Converge, Death Heaven, Between the Buried and Me, and Dillinger Escape Plan. And I would say those are still 4 of my favourite bands. And like, I suppose Between the Buried and Me is less of an influence on us, but the other 3 are like my 3 favourite bands and the 3 biggest influences on the music I write to this day.
All incredible bands and some of my favorites, but bands that definitely took me years of being into like new metal and everything else before I got fully on board with it all.
Yeah, and it's funny me going in the opposite direction, 'cause I'll be like, oh, I've just discovered Power Man 5000. I'm really into them now. And it's like, I should have already skipped that part and gone to like the more advanced stuff, but I'm going back, I'm regressing and being like, oh, really down with this new Korn. Fantastic.
I think I first heard Power Man 5000 on like a Dragon Ball Z edit or something.
Sick. Yeah.
So at what point in that did you decide to pick up guitar? And
It wasn't very long after. It was honestly maybe 6 months after I found Deaf Heaven. Within a couple months, a friend at uni had a electric guitar at his house, and I picked it up and like had a play on it, and was like, this is fun. I wonder if I could play some Deaf Heaven riffs, and I couldn't. But I was like, all right, I want to buy one of my own. So I saved up, and then when 6 months later, I got home from uni, and I was like, I got my mum doesn't drive, but I got one of my mum's friends to drive me to this music store, because there was no music stores in town. And we drove out so I could pick up, because they didn't do delivery from this music store. And I got a Ibanez that was like £250. I was like, this is the most money I've ever spent on anything. We got this guitar back, and the first thing I started learning was just Deaf Heaven songs, which is a weird way in to be like, right, I'm going to start with tremolo, blast beat, massive chords.
I love the idea that Deaf Heaven was a gateway band for anyone.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's obviously happened. Like, there's such a name, but I don't think I've ever come across anyone saying that before.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can see it, but it was coming in from their post-rock influences into their metal.
Makes sense.
And they're still like my favorite band ever. So
they were so sick last night.
They were sick. The new album is honestly their best in. I mean, I thought that Infinite Granite was also amazing. So I really think it's cool that they've done both things and been like, here's our hardest album in ages, and here's like the most like indie rock album we've done, and they're both fantastic. And I think that's really cool. Like the new stuff sounded amazing.
What's your favorite Deaf Heaven record?
It's probably still Sunbather, just because that was what got me into them. I think it was like back when I used to use Last FM a lot. Even though their songs are all like 10 minutes long, they were my most listened band on plays by like 3 times more than anyone else. So I've probably spent like months of my life listening to Deaf Heaven, if not more. And you know, hopefully one day we'll get to tour with them. Every time one comes up, I'm onto our agent being like, can we tour with Deaf Heaven now? And he's like, oh no, they've picked someone else. And I'm like, damn it, next time I'll try it, and I'll just keep writing more and more black metal songs for us so that we get noticed.
I'm sure it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, I was pretty obsessive back when I got into them. I followed them around on like a UK tour they did, and like went to every night and was annoying them every day, being like, oh, you're my favourite band. Oh, right, what guitar pedals are you using here? And all the first guitar pedals I bought were all the ones that were on Kerry McCoy's pedal board. And I was like, yeah, let me get a Memory Man. Let me get a Hall of Fame. Let me get all of this. Let me get this looper and all of these pedals. Even though now being in a band, I know how much, like, I don't really think about the particular pedals, and it's more just whatever serves the purpose of the things I'm doing. But when there's a certain magic about bands when that's one thing that's annoying about being in a band, is a bit of the magic you lose of like knowing what it's like just standing around sound checking and playing the set, and then you see technical difficulties happen with bands and you're like, I know exactly what that's feeling like. And if you weren't in a band, you wouldn't even notice that. Like I probably wouldn't have 10 years ago been watching a band and being like, I really can't hear the guitars in this mix, and the kick's too subby, and
like you've seen how it gets made, seen how the sausage is made, and it's less appetizing sometimes.
Yeah. But like Deaf Heaven is a band. There are bands still where you can watch them and like that magic comes back. Like Knock Loose is a band where you watch them and go, wow, that is how are they doing that, and how can we reach that level of performance and stuff. And Deaf Heaven's also one of those for me. I know watching Lamb of God headline Bloodstock when we played with them a couple of years ago was one where it was like with all the pyro and everything, and I was like, okay, cool, that's what metal can be at a higher level. But I don't tend to go to a lot of shows because I don't live near London particularly, and it's hard to go to shows, so the only things I see are things we're playing with. So it's always a treat when like we're playing a festival and then King Diamond's headlining. I'm like, oh, that's what you can do at like a higher level, because usually we're just seeing bands around our level. But yeah, it is sad that sometimes there is a bit of a lessening of the impact of things. Like there was a magic about seeing Dillinger. I went to New York for the final Dillinger Escape Plan shows, and that was like crazy, insane. And then we played with Dillinger last year at Brutal Assault, and I watched them reunited, and they're one of my top three favorite bands of all time. But I was sort of just like, yeah, it's all right, but I know what it's like being in a band now, so it's less interesting.
And also, no Greg.
No Greg, but it was still great. Like, I'm not that bothered either way.
What were some of your other favourite acts of the Damnation weekend?
So far, I watched Author and Punisher, Wormrot, High on Fire. Who's been on today? I watched Hidden Mothers, Into Conjurer, which is really good. Betrayal of Guilt were really sick. Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Did you watch Garia last night?
No, I didn't see them.
That was so good.
Yeah, I need to check them out. I don't know.
So it's very, very Deaf Heaven-y.
Oh, sick. Okay. Yeah. That's all you need to say. I'm looking forward to Vega Dude later and Napalm Death. I'm probably going to have to do half of Vega Dude and then Napalm Death because I don't want to miss Napalm Death. Oh, Pig Destroyer as well. They were fantastic. They were probably my highlight so far.
Yep.
Yeah,
they would have been a big influence on the first album, right?
Yeah. Pig Destroyer and Nails and Carcass were like a bit, I guess, a bit more prominent on the first one, but you know, like Deaf Heaven did. We our new album came out like 2 days ago, and we're literally, me and Josh, our drummer, have been here, and half the time this weekend of Damnation we've just been thinking, right, so what are we doing on the next album? Well, let's plan out all this stuff, and it sort of feels like a chapter's been closed because our record deal's fulfilled now as well, so we can, was like, do we go independent? Do we look at who we want to sign with? What direction do we want to go? And one plan we've had for ages is it's like, do we want to do a black gaze focused, like just hone in on that and make that the whole vision for a project? And then the other thing we've wanted to do is like go way more inaccessible and go like full math grind, like really harsh and really intense, and maybe like setting those limitations of what the thing would be would make a more focused vision of it. And you know, who knows if those barriers would make it harder or easier to write or what they would bring out. But I think it'd be fun to try those. So now we're trying to figure out the order in which we do those. And Scott Hull threw his pick in the crowd, and Josh caught it and gave it to me. And he was like, this is the sign.
Let's go. More grind on the next one. So with the style shift from like the first and the second album, was that like really premeditated? Had you thought about that a lot, or was it kind of just what was coming out really, when you jammed?
I mean, I think across all three albums, they have just been a collection of these are the songs we finished writing, and I mean there was thought in. We have a lot of influences, obviously, that are quite disparate, and trying to fit those all together is hard in itself. But we don't tend to put limits on ourselves when writing, and that's why the albums sort of end up quite diverse, because like I'll make a document of, we've got this song in progress that's like a fast, grindy number, and there's like this song ends with a breakdown. So we've got those covered. We probably don't want every song on the album ending with a breakdown. Let's have we've got this Black Gaze idea we're working on. That's going to be like a 10-minute song, so we don't really need to focus on writing another one after that, because I want to sort of create quite a diverse range to the album, have it flowing well without big gaps in like, oh, here's 20 minutes of Black Gaze and only like 3 fast songs. But yeah, that's sort of what we were thinking with the new one. Is the new one that hasn't even started is maybe putting those limits on ourselves would make for some. We haven't tried that approach, because at the moment it's just been, here are the songs that we've written recently and they make this, and then I end up tying them together. Like there is thought put into, I'm going to put these motifs throughout them. So across the first album, there are rhythmic motifs that show up in multiple songs. Like, I think in the first album, there's a da-da-da-da-da-da that's like a recurring rhythm across multiple songs, and a
Dillinger rhythm.
Yeah, there's a lot of little rhythms and note sequences. Like, I love doing on the bottom string 6 3 6 3 1 da 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 do. That's in like 7 of our songs or something. But it's fun having these little sort of things calling back, and or sometimes if I don't know where to go with the riff, I'm like, well, what if I paraphrase this riff from another song? And I think in Blossom, like 3 of the songs ended up being variations on a different on the same riff as the core riff for each song, but I think they're so different in the execution that you can't really tell. I think it's Dim Morning Light, the song Blossom, and Song Creation's End, and the opening piano part are all like the same riff, but like just played in different ways, same kind of progression. I do have quite a lot of fun sort of pulling everything together. There's always little musical nods to the bands we like as well. Blossom, there's Creating the Devil in Our Image has like a lead from a Radiohead song on it. That song also has a riff that's like almost lifted from Caffo by Animals as Leaders, because I just thought it was sick, and I was like, I'm just going to reference that for like 2 bars. Yeah, that sort of stuff happens all over the place. A lot of the time it's unintentional, and then we realise, and then we're like, well, in the context of the song, you're not going to notice it, so it's just funny. So let's leave it in, because it's
little Easter eggs everywhere.
Yeah, no music's created in a vacuum anyway, so no art. So.
What shows you got coming up to support the record?
We are doing 6 shows, or 7? 6, with LLNN and Worn Out in this month.
LLNN are so fucking sick. One of the heaviest bands I've ever seen. They're
really cool, and I've not seen them live, but Victor, who does vocals with them now, he's lovely. He's in the band Eyes as well, which is like a mathcore band, or hardcore, mathcore, whatever, core.
Every Time I Die core.
Yeah. And they're really cool as well. And Victor booked our very first show in Copenhagen like 3 years ago. So he's been a fan and a friend of us for a while. So it's cool to get to go and tour with him, which would be cool.
Nice. What's been the most surreal, or like, I guess, biggest achievement, what's felt like the biggest achievement in terms of your touring history so far?
I don't know. Every tour we've had has felt like the biggest thing. So like the first tour we ever did, we were sort of thrown in the deep end, because it was Rolo Tomasi was the first tour, and that was meant to be like 20 dates as well across Europe and the UK, and because of COVID it ended up just being UK. So it was Harriet, us and Rolo, and that was the first tour we'd ever done. And before that, the most people we'd played to was like 50, and I think the London show on that was like 800 people. So that was already like, this is crazy. And Rolo, Josh, our drummer's like favorite band ever, and his like main, because I come in mathcore from like the Dillinger direction, he comes in from the Rolo direction, as those were our gateways into that genre, before we like got into every band in those genres, and became experts of the art of mathcore, and incredibly nerdy about loads of underground bands. But yeah, that was like, and then after that we had Godflesh asked us to play a show, and I was like, sick, okay, cool. And it was just us and Godflesh, no other bands, and I was like, this is crazy.
Like Godflesh personally was like, we want Pupil Slicer.
Yeah. It was like, that was crazy. And then
That is
Justin's
sick.
like the nicest guy ever. They both were. Yeah, it's like, that was crazy. And then after that, we had End, which is pretty crazy. And then a bunch of festivals. Like we had Arctangent, which was my dream festival. It was the first festival I ever went to. So it was really cool to get to play that, and that was in the first year of our touring. And then we did, I think that year we also did Damnation at the end of the year.
That was going to be my next question, if you'd ever
preview
played
night.
Damnation.
Yeah, we did the Night of Salvation with Celeste, We Lost the Sea, Ithaca, and I can't remember who the last band was. But that was pretty great. Oh, Mastiff, who we're good friends with, and we've played with loads of times back in the day. So yeah, those were all, every single one of those was crazy. And then we had like our first Europe shows, which were one of me and Josh's favorite bands, Boris, were like, we want Pupil Slicer for like 4 weeks in Europe. And that was our first Europe experience. So it's hard to find something in particular that's crazy, because everything in a row was
sick.
like, this is crazy. It doesn't get better than this. And then we get more offers, and it's like, this is crazy. It doesn't get better than this. And then after those, we did more festivals in the summer. Did Download Festival, which is like the biggest rock festival in the UK, and Bloodstock Festival. So those were like two of the biggest ones in the UK, which is like, don't know what else we can do now in like terms of the big stuff in the UK. And then we had our first fly out, which was like Brutal Assault. We had the Copenhagen one that Victor put on, and then Odense for Ilta Festival, which was really cool with, and for some reason we ended up being like the headline band that most people watched, even though it was meant to be, what's their name? Rotten Sound, I think, was like the headline band, but loads of people left after our set. I guess they were too drunk or tired, because Europe festivals go on really late. So we ended up being the band that most people watched. So I thought that was weird, but cool that loads of people watched us. So yeah, like everything's been pretty crazy, and I do think we were thrown in the deep end without enough experience to really know what we were doing. Like we went from playing DIY little shows to playing with Rolo, who are all on click, all using like amp sims and fully dialed in with a sound guy and all these things, and we just weren't like at that level, and I think we weren't executing what we did on Mirrors as well as we could have when it came out, because we were just literally thrown in there. And like we went from being a DIY band that everyone watches and goes, wow, that's really tight, that's amazing for a DIY band to be playing like that, to a band signed to a label going out, but we were still playing like a DIY band who was like good for a DIY band, but not at that level of production and technicality and road experience, really, of like, how do you pace yourself on a tour, like making sure to get like go to bed straight after the show, don't stay up and chat with people and blow your voice out. Like I lost my voice like 4 days into the Rolo tour because I'd not done a tour before and I didn't know how to preserve my voice properly, and the same happened to Debbie from Heriot because it was one of their first big tours, and those kind of things, and then that resulted in like not doing the best. I couldn't do harsh vocals for half that tour because I blew my voice out because I didn't know how to pace myself and pace my voice, not spend all evening shouting over music, chatting with people.
So did you just like skip those parts, or were you just barking through it still?
No, I was just like saying them instead of screaming them because I couldn't. I was just like, because that was like all that was coming out. It wasn't, and I think maybe that stunted how people view us as a live band, but I think by that time the next year, sort of around when we hit Download, we sort of had fully locked in, and like after the 4 weeks with Boris, that really like made us road worn, and then we were on click from that point, and really like locking in and like drilling the sets, and then the next thing that really pushed us to the next level was we got asked to do Blossom in full, and we got Sam Jones, who plays keys in Palm Reader, to join us and do keys with us, as well as second guitars for that. And then Luke Booth, who used to play with We Never Learned to Live, joined on bass. And yeah, that tour went fantastic. I was really proud with how we executed that. But yeah, it's a bit of a shame that I feel like a lot of the momentum off of that first release, we didn't get to capitalize on by wowing people in the way that we would have. Like, I now feel like our show over the last 2 years is fantastic, but then I see comments online that's like looking us up as a band, being like, oh, this new band, let me just Google them, watched a bit of their Bloodstock set, sounds like they're still finding their sound. And I'm like, but that's 3 years ago. We found it and we're now executing it. But you know, you live in that, like, it's all of our first, like, we didn't come from playing in other bands that have had any kind of success at all.
So it's your first band?
Yeah. Well, me and Josh played in a little close black metal thing, so that was how I got into playing music. Was I put an ad on joinmyband.com where I was like, I want to play in a band that sounds like Death Heaven, and I got messaged and they were like, we're practicing now if you want to come down. So I travelled halfway across London, like instantly when I got that message, and like met Josh there and the two other guys that were in that band. And then the bassist from that band was like, oh, I've got a couple grindcore riffs that I'm working on, do you want to come over and like figure them out? And those ended up turning into the first PUPIL SLICER EP. And then we were like, well, we need a drummer, and we got Josh. And then that guy was like, I don't feel like doing the band anymore. So me and Josh had this project, and we'd start getting shows because we had a funny name, because I came up with the name and I was like, it's the funniest name I could think of for a metal band. Because
Interesting that you say it's a funny name, because it's always, to me, sort of just seemed like a really brutal and uncomfortable kind of like squirming sort of name, like, ooh.
Yeah, but that's why it's funny. It's like horrific. I don't know. If it was a doom band, it was going to be like Knights of the Holy Roman Bonfire, or Nug Muncher. That was the other one I had.
That is a sick name.
Yeah, maybe that will get used one day.
So it seems, I guess, pretty self-explanatory, but this sticker that you've given me, trans-inclusive radical hatred, what does that statement mean to you exactly, and how did it come to, I guess, is this like the band's slogan, would you say?
I suppose it is now. Yeah, I mean, our bassist, Luke Booth, was going on a holiday and passing through New York, and was like, can you make me a bunch of stickers with PUPIL SLICER on, with like a trans flag, just to stick up, given everything going on in the US at the moment? And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then I was like, oh, this would be funny. I don't know how I came up with the phrase, but I was like, it'd be funny to like have a little slogan that's like and then I was like, I want to put something trans-inclusive. And I was like, I don't know, trans-inclusive radical hatred, because it's an angry band, as a play on like TERF, trans-exclusionary radical feminist, which is like a big movement in the UK, it seems, headed up by like J.K. Rowling.
TERF Island.
TERF Island, yeah. Sort of flooding her millions of pounds into lobbying for government changes, which are working, because we seem to be introducing, like, we've never had laws governing what bathrooms anyone can go in, and there hasn't been a problem with that. And the public in the UK seem to be like, the common consensus is, yeah, that makes sense. I just go in the other loo when the queue's shorter at like a show, or like, you see people online being like, yeah, I always use these loos because they're nicer or whatever. And then like, no one cares. But now we're introducing laws to and now people are being stopped and checked on stuff that it's not been an issue before, and it shouldn't be. So yeah, like, yeah, trans-inclusive radical hatred is, we're a trans-inclusive band. We're inclusive of everyone, really.
Except for TERFs.
Except for TERFs. And radical hatred, because it's very angry music, I suppose.
Do you think, like, the anti-trans movement in the UK, is that literally all just because of J.K. Rowling? Were there other forces at work before that all happened, or?
I think she has been a big voice in it, like making it sort of come to the surface. Like, because she's a massive celebrity here. Like, Harry Potter is a big thing, and she's been a big voice in the UK's. And because of that, a lot of the UK media has sort of rallied around it, and then you get other people being like, I stand with J.K. Rowling, what she's standing for, and getting caught up on it. Like, Graham Linehan's another one who used to write fantastic, very witty comedy shows that are beloved in the UK, and then I think it was he was trying to chat up a trans girl on Twitter, and she didn't want to go out with him, and because of that he became really anti-trans, and now has made that his entire life, and to the point of like his wife and kids asking him to stop or leave and stuff over it, and he's just like, oh, they're getting to everyone, and because it's his entire personality, and I don't know who he's doing it for, what he's trying to achieve, what he's trying to earn, if he even believes any of the things, or it's just because it makes him relevant. And it's like, you were a well-beloved writer of comedy and stuff that in this country, you didn't need to do this to be relevant, but I don't know, it sucks.
Sounds like he's probably just really sexually frustrated.
Yeah, basically. So it's pretty weird and fucked up, and it seems to be permeating into government policy and stuff because of the millions of pounds being dumped into lobbying and these like fake charities being set up to deal with a problem that doesn't exist. And I don't really understand why that would be the case in terms of like, there are bigger problems at work and like issues with like billionaires in our country, in the same way there are issues with billionaires in every country, and like the government all handing contracts to its mates, and like the people in government handing contracts to their mates to get kickbacks, and like it's all very obfuscated and not done in the interest of the people the government is meant to be serving. And I guess it's a cultural issue that can be used to distract people from the bigger issues going on. I've heard one theory that it's like something to do with the reason that the movement is picking up in less traction in the US, and it's more of like a UK problem, is that feminism isn't as intersectional here as it is in the US because of the civil rights movement. In the US, there's sort of more of a idea of feminism including other marginalized groups, people of color, queer people, and things like that. Whereas in the UK, it's more, the suffragette movement was more rights for us middle-class white women, but not people of color and others. So it's less intersectional here, which is why there's this weird subset of people who are like, I've got my rights, now no one else needs any, and I want to keep it that way. But I don't know. Who knows why these things happen? It's all nothing better to do, I suppose.
Obviously, all this stuff would really like affect you emotionally on like a personal level, but with the way like legislation changes and stuff are happening, and there's this push, like, have you felt much of it impacting you like in your day-to-day living in terms of a more practical sense?
In a more practical sense,
like, are there any laws that have like stopped you from
being
who you are or doing what you want to do? Or
I mean, I can't get married as a non-binary person without putting myself on a marriage certificate as a man. I can't get healthcare. I mean, the healthcare thing was an issue before all this stuff came out. In the like the waiting lists are now 25 years for anything in the UK, unless you go through private healthcare, which I did go through private healthcare after like 3 years of being on waiting lists, or maybe more, and being like, I can't do this, and I started with like DIY hormones off the internet and stuff, and then moving into private healthcare where I got a prescription through that, which is really expensive and like a thing where I'm like, I'm way worse off financially than anyone who didn't have to deal with these things. and the healthcare system not providing for it. And then like I've had like, so I came out like, I don't know, like 8 years ago now or something. I've been on that waiting list that long, and I still haven't had anything really, any response back. And it's like, yeah, you're still on the waiting list for being officially recognised or any of that stuff. They're trying to make it harder to even get gender recognition certificates. Like I suppose I've resigned myself to like nonchalance about the things of like, I don't know, I do feel afraid going in the bathrooms if I'm going to be stopped or someone's going to beat me up because they think I'm a threat to someone. But at the same time, I'm just like, if that happens, that happens. It's hard to not live in fear of these things, but it hasn't happened to me personally. But I just roll with like knowing that with legislation changes now, if I got arrested for anything, I'll be put in a men's prison and probably raped and beaten up, might die. But I don't know, I'll try not to commit crimes. But like that shouldn't be, it's like a cruel and unjust.
Shouldn't be something you have to think about.
Yeah, like if someone like dodges their taxes and messes up, that seems a bit of a extravagant punishment. If someone gets like 3 months in prison, but then those things happen to them, like, yeah, they shouldn't have done the things, but at the same time, that's is a bit much that these things are happening. I honestly have sort of unplugged from a lot of it. I don't keep super up to date because I'm just like, whatever. I'm not gonna get. I can't get my IDs updated. Some of them to match stuff, and it's just like, okay, like whatever. I'll just live with it. And like, I can't get healthcare. I know a lot of people who can't. If I hadn't gone through the private stuff when I did, it would have been even worse because a lot of private. So the place I started with my private healthcare with, I think, has been shut down by the government, and thankfully it got onto like a weird agreement with them to be the prescriber, but my doctor to continue it, and then the doctors continued it. But even though I don't know if the thing that prescribed it originally still exists, but then the doctor is continuing the prescription, but I'm like, that could stop at any time. I know people who've had stuff withdrawn, and I'm just lucky that I'm not one of them. And that, yeah, it's not the best. And like having to be in fear of the changes, like being incredibly self-conscious, using the bathroom, being like my partner waits outside for me, like if we go to the cinema, because someone like who wants to be a hero might see me go in the bathroom, and then when I come out, like wait to ambush me and like beat me up or something, because those things have been happening and you see it in the news. It hasn't happened to me, but it is something I need to be aware of in my day-to-day life, which is it's scary. And I know people who have had experiences like that, and I'm thankful I'm not one of them. I think the area I'm in is relatively okay. I don't get slurs yelled at me all the time. I know that happens to some of my friends in other places in the country. It all depends on where you are. But I would say that on the whole, people the general public generally seems to be supportive and welcoming. It's just there's like a very vocal minority.
Ugly underbelly.
An ugly underbelly, for sure.
To bring it, I guess, into a more positive light, you must be like a massive inspiration and role model for a lot of young trans people.
So I don't think of it like that, but at the same time, I suppose, like, people have said that to me. And I do see why, because, like, someone like Connie from See You Space Cowboy was a big inspiration to me when I was coming out almost a decade ago, being like, oh, people can do that and be in bands, and it seems to be that people are supportive. And yeah, it's a weird one. Like, someone came up to me at Arctangent this summer and was just like, I just want to say thank you for being a non-binary icon, and being an inspiration in the hardcore scene. And keep doing what you're doing. And I get messages from people saying that my music helped them come out. It helped them come to terms with their own identities. It helped them through hard times. It helped them with like losing loved ones, like all sorts of things. And it's really cool that can have that effect. But I suppose that is a reason that I chose on this album to be a little bit more direct with the messaging on the album about raising awareness of injustices in the systems around the world and in the UK, because I think it's cool to shine a light on it. And it's really cool that the Conjure album came out like a week or 2 weeks before our album as well, and that deals with a lot of similar things, because Danny came out as trans, and the album is dealing with a lot of their feelings on that, and their feelings about the systems in the world at the moment. So it's cool seeing more awareness of that. And you know, I think a lot of people are allies even if they're not aware of it, and then they think about it for a second. They're like, oh yeah, I am supportive of those people. These people are my friends. Like, people finding out their friends are queer and then being like, oh yeah, I'm supportive of that. Yeah, of course. And I think it's a nice thing. And the music it's cool to have that be our music, to be an inspiration to people and be something that they feel is something that helps them. Like, that's not what I'm thinking of when I'm writing it, but at the same time it is
just the fact that you're there expressing yourself as you are.
That people appreciate that. That's really cool.
So what's the 2026 looking like for Pupil Slicer? Are you going to be really busy off the back of Fleshwork?
Hopefully. The offers we didn't have much until the album came out, but now the offers are starting to come in off the back of it, which is cool. So hopefully we've got like a potential European tour, like a 4-week one, which will be a nice solid one, and hopefully a load of festivals and stuff in the summer. And you know, we're waiting to see what comes in. We haven't got anything locked in at the moment, but we're seeing what offers come in and then trying to plan out a year that makes sense for us.
Nice. Well, I'm pretty fucking cooked and keen to go watch some more music before the end of it all. So unless is there anything else you'd like to say before we wrap it up?
No, it's all right. If you're watching this, you probably already have listened to our album or something and know us. But if not, I guess
check it out. It's very
check
sick.
it out. It's pupilslicer.com. Scott.
Well, thanks for your time, Kate.
Yeah.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening to Music Is My Life. This podcast is self-produced by me, Lachlan Watt. I'd like to thank Audio-Technica Australia for providing the high-quality equipment that has made this possible, as well as Patrick Galvin at Hollowbone Studio for the design. The killer theme music that you are currently hearing was written by the legends TJ Cowgill and Sam Saljuki. Catch you in the next episode.